Hi guys, it's Jackie. I'm going to share a story that happened to me about 8 or 9 years ago. And it all happened when I got a phone call from this girl that used to go to church with me. And I knew her from Sunday school. I was quite a bit older than her. She was a little girl when I was at church with her. She was probably 8. And she would, 8 or 9, and she would come and talk to me a lot. And she was just a sweet girl, kind of quiet, but very talkative at the same time, if that makes sense. Like she was, I don't know, I want to say she was very sweet, but she was very reserved. Okay, she called me one day, and she's an adult now, and she just started chatting with me, and for some reason, she told me that she had a brain tumor and was looking for a place to stay. Well, she was staying with a friend at the time, and I got the directions and drove over and went to see her, and it was quite a drive, and I went to see her, and she was staying with a friend, and I went in, and she was laying in bed, and it broke my heart because she had a little boy at the time who was 6. And so I went in there and pulled up a chair and sat with her and prayed with her. We talked. And that was it. Then she called me and wanted to see me again. I went and seen her again. And she asked if her and her son could come and live with me because she had nowhere to go because her friend was kicking her out. So I said yes, because I have a big heart, and I felt really bad. And so I brought her in, and she slept on a sofa bed that was in the living room, and I took care of her. Now, she said she couldn't eat. I mean, it was back and forth. Mind you, I never took her to a doctor appointment. She always had a friend. She said that she had a friend that would pick her up and take her to her doctor appointments. And so I never took her. Well, there were some people that knew her, even family, that said, be careful. Don't believe everything she tells you. And I was offended at that. I was like, are you kidding me? You know, this poor girl has cancer. She's in her 20s. She has a little boy, and she would talk to him about it all the time, of her cancer. And she stayed with us for a while. Then she started asking me, would I stay home from work to watch over her and take care of her? And she would like grimace in so much pain, and I felt so bad. And so I would lay in the bed with her sometimes and sleep there to watch over her at night in case she needed me. And then her condition started getting worse, and she wouldn't eat, but sometimes she would ask for something bland like a pudding, something easy to go down, and I would make her whatever sounded good to her. My husband as well would take care of her. We felt sorry for her. She would have visitors come in and pray with her and talk to her, and you know, she was like, one day she said, I would really like you, when I pass away, to be my son's mother. And I said, absolutely, you know, we have to get some legal paper drawn up to do this. And so she said yes. She had a lawyer already picked out. And meanwhile, she got a wheelchair. So she had a wheelchair. She couldn't walk anymore. And when her little boy started kindergarten, I took her to the school, to the sort of like a kindergarten roundup, you know, to get to know the teachers. And she explained the situation to the teachers, how she had cancer, and, you know, I was going to be taking over as his mother. The little boy and I started to really create a bond. And he would say to me, Jackie, you're going to be my new mom, right? And I would say, absolutely. And then she would be too sick to pick him up for school and stuff. You know, usually she'd go with me, but I would go do it. And I would do all the running that she needed. And then I started going back to work. And then my daughter, who was at the time, I want to say about 9, And she told me one time, Mama, I saw this girl who stayed with me. I saw her standing up and walking around. And I reprimanded her. I said, honey, no, that's not very nice. I said, you must have just misunderstood her. And she said, well, she was standing in the bathroom, washing her face without her wheelchair. And she always said she couldn't get out of the wheelchair. So I refused to believe that. And she told me a couple of times. And I thought, well, maybe she was leaning against the sink. Well, then all of her friends had this humongous party where they were going to shave her head because she wanted to shave it before she started chemo. So she shaved it, and there's a huge party, and she sat in the middle of the floor, and everybody's around her and encouraging her, and some people were shaving their heads to be like her, to, support her, how people do. And she came back and lived with me and stuff. And then one day I noticed she would say, Burger King sounds really good, or, Red Lobster sounds good. And she supposedly had a brain tumor, and it was in her stomach now, and her stomach had cancer. So I thought, well, that's kind of strange, but if it sounds good, I would get it for her. So I got her whatever she wanted. And sometimes she would say, you just can't wait for me to die so you can get my son. And I would say, don't say that. That's not true at all. I'd rather you live and be his mother, And she even told him, Mama's going to go. I'm sick, but, Jackie's going to be your new mama. And this went on, I want to say, for several months. And one day, things just weren't adding up. And I can't even remember. I think the fact that she started eating really heartily, and she hadn't lost any weight yet, so supposedly she was getting chemo treatments. Her friend, who was a nurse, would come pick her up. Even her dad, her mom, everybody knew she had cancer, but they seemed not terribly overly concerned, like they wondered if maybe was she making this up. And I just couldn't believe people would even think that way. Why would you shave your head? Why would you do this? So one day, to tell you the truth, I can't even remember the big issue that made me and my husband know at the time something wasn't right. Oh, I know what it was. Her attorney, I kept saying to her, we need to get the attorney papers signed. We need to get this signed. And she would say, I know, I will. And, so she said she was going to get the papers. She kept saying that. So one day we called her attorney, and he had never heard of her. So that was it. We knew everything started making sense, and we knew something was wrong. And so one day she was at the house, and we were gone doing something, and we decided we were going to confront her and tell her that we knew. Oh, and also her family members bought her a plane ticket to the Mayo Clinic and paid for stuff. And I mean, it went this far, and she was getting ready to go, and all her family would come into town from far away, and we would go to the park and, just all spend time together. And they were trying to get her to go to Mayo Clinic. She said she didn't want to go because she knew her doctor had told her there was such a small chance that she didn't even want to go through it. She was too weak. And she didn't have eyelashes or eyebrows, so, everything about her story made sense to me. But then again, so my husband and I were driving around. We just talked to her attorney, who said he never heard of her. And we came in, and she had the wheelchair dumped over, and she was halfway in the porch and halfway out of the porch, like she had fallen. And you could tell it was staged. I think she knew we were kind of getting on to her. Oh, and she would say, when I die, just drop me out in the field somewhere and let me die when I'm almost to the brink of death, because that's how I want to go out. Well, I thought that was really strange. But anyway, so we came home, and her wheelchair was dumped over between the door and outside. And she goes, I need help up. And I said, why don't you get up yourself? And she looked at me, and she said, what are you talking about? I said, get up yourself. And she said, well, I need my phone. I go, get up and get your phone yourself. And she knew then that she was busted, and she didn't say much. She got in her wheelchair and sat there, and I called her dad and told him to come get her. And honestly, this broke my heart because I had fallen in love with her like a daughter, and I thought her little boy was going to be mine, and he thought that he was going to be mine. And like I said, we had created a bond, and he had always said, Jackie, you're going to adopt me, right? You can be my mommy, right? And I would say, yes. And he would say, you promise? And I would say, I promise. But of course, this is what I thought. Well, her dad came and talked to her, and she would not admit to him that she was lying. But I told her she had to leave. And in fact, so she did. And she left, and it broke my heart, but it was a relief to have it over with. And then next thing I knew, you know, she was lying about the whole thing. And my gut tells me, and I could be wrong, but my gut tells me that she was going to, when she said she wanted to be dropped off in the middle of a field or something far away from somebody and die there, because that's how she wanted to go out, I thought back, she probably wanted to run off with some guy or something and leave her son with somebody that she trusted with. I mean, I had heard a lot of stories about her, like she had blamed her father at a young age for molesting her, and they swear it never happened, the mom and dad, and now, I mean, but he still had that mark on him. People still looked at him and wondered. And I mean, now, and this is a true story, now her son, who is now a teenager, he has a brain tumor, a real, honest-to-goodness brain tumor that is pretty severe. So this was just the craziest story, and I always thought, dang, I could write a book about this. But the reason I'm sorry I'm sick today. If you can tell, I'm plugged up. I have a sore throat. I have a cold. So I didn't want to go put my face on a video and make everybody scared. But this was my story. I still love her. I still love that little boy, but I never had contact with him again because I just thought it was too confusing for him. And I don't know. And now she's remarried, and I guess the guy treats her like gold, and they moved away. And I don't know. But that's my story of the girl who faked cancer for whatever reason and pulled me into her story. So I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy this story. Please leave a comment and like. Thank you.